up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. My name's John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, today we are talking about the Buffalo Bills 2021 draft. Guys, I am going to be breaking down the first 3 rounds, give an overview of what I'm thinking for just their total draft. I'll touch on some other players, but I'm really going to give a breakdown of the players drafted in the first 3 rounds specifically. Let's get right into it. All right, so let's first just do a total overview of the draft. I'm going to put up the graphic now for you guys. You look at the guys they were able to bring in. Listen, they focused on 2 things: defensive line and offensive line, which makes a lot of sense. Those were the 2 positions of needs. The first thing they did, they said, okay, first 2 picks, Gregory Rousseau, Carlos Basham Jr. Both guys, they're kind of interesting defensive line prospects, defensive end prospects. We'll get into what I think about them. I'm not going to totally lie to you guys. I was not a huge fan. But then after that, go a couple offensive linemen, Spencer Brown in the 3rd, and then Tommy Doyle in the 5th out of Miami of Ohio, trying to bolster that offensive line that certainly did struggle. I know a lot of people thought, oh, they're going to go running back. I know, that was certainly probably a conversation. I'm sure they would have really thought about it if Travis Etienne or Najee Harris were there at 30, but they weren't. And really, I was of the opinion, like they got Zach Moss last year, who I'm not out on. I certainly think has a chance to be a pretty good NFL running back. And then they also obviously have Devin Singletary from a couple of years ago, who has certainly proven to me that he's never going to be a lead back in the NFL. Like I certainly thought he had a chance to be when he first came out. But really, I think the reason they struggled so much was 2 reasons. One, run game is a little simple. I don't know any other way to say it. It was just like the same kind of concepts kept coming up back and back and back. So defenses were able to kind of key in on that. And the offense line wasn't good. If you're going to have a simple run scheme and that everybody's going to know where the ball's going, you better have an offensive line that can block it and block it at a high level. So I think that was like the 2 things that were an issue. Hey, they attacked that offensive line. I think that was the main problem for their run game. These running backs that they got, yeah, they're maybe neither of them are superstars, but they can certainly run the offense to a proficient level. And it's not, I don't think, a huge detriment. I think it's far more important to address the offensive line than the running back specifically. But let's get into the players they got in the first 3 rounds. We'll start off with the 30th pick in this draft. In the first round, Gregory Rousseau goes to the Bills, a lineman out of Miami. And listen, I was not a big fan of this. I did a draft profile on him, so if you're interested in a deep dive of every aspect of his game, you can check out the draft profile on him and see kind of my full thoughts there. But just in a nutshell, long, huge frame. I mean, just you talk about a big dude, 6'7", 266 pounds. That's what he is, man. It's really, really impressive. You talk about a guy who is very athletic, has a really high ceiling. I mean, absolutely has a super, super high ceiling. I do think he also has a really low floor. Change of direction isn't good. I do think he's a little bit lumbering, and really all of his production from that 2019 season that really put him on the map, and at one point had him projected as a top 10 pick, which I don't think was ever realistic. It came on stunts. It came off of against very, very poor tackles, and just kind of got, or they were effort plays where the guy on the other side of the defensive line really caused havoc, and he just got there at the right time, and the stat went to him. So that was where a lot of the production came. So yeah, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Gregory Rousseau. I see a very limited skill set, and I think he does have a pretty low floor altogether. But he is a guy who I said in my draft profile probably goes late first, because a team is going to fall in love. And I think that's what happened with the Bills. Bills fell in love with the potential, and this is the type of guy that fits into a Bills scheme. So it's not a bad pick by any means. And then the next defensive end they get, Carlos Basham. I mean, honestly, I feel worse about him. I'm not gonna lie. He was a guy who I thought was widely over analyzed and over projected a little bit. I just was not a big fan. Another guy, 6'3", 274, a big DN. The Bills they don't like those quick, twitchy athletes at the edge rusher position. They don't really have a true edge rusher. No, they want defensive ends that can go play fundamental football, fill in their gaps, fill in their holes, and let the linebackers, like the Tremaine Edmonds of the Bills defense, just fly to the football. And I think that's an aspect of what they like. They want guys that can set the edge and do all those things really well. But they're not really interested in for the most part, at least the way they've drafted tells me that they're not really interested in those just twitch switched up ridiculous athletes at that DN position, right? Basham, good hands, strong physical. He's a 3-year starter, has an amazing swim move. But you know, he does fall into that, like, okay, he's kind of a tweener type of defender. You know, I get that he went second round. I didn't see him as a second rounder, to be totally honest, but late second round, almost third. I guess I get the value there. I did say third to fourth when I kind of did my grade on him pre-draft process, and I don't think I did a video on him or anything, but I certainly was not his biggest fan, but he certainly has some upside, and again fits into that Bills defense and Bills defensive line specifically that they are trying to shore up and add to. And really, before we get to the third round pick, I do want to just touch on like the amount of assets that the Bills have put into that defensive line recently. And you know, it starts with like an Ed Oliver a couple of years ago. They missed on, man. Ed Oliver, he's not the guy. I'm sorry. Like maybe he'll turn it around. He certainly has the ability to do that. But a top 10 pick who is certainly underperformed from that. And I mean, it's unfortunate for the Bills specifically because I mean, I think him missing is a big reason why the Bills had to go back-to-back defensive end in these first 2 rounds. I know Ed Oliver's technically a D tackle, so it's not the exact same position, but Ed Oliver was supposed to be a real difference maker on that defensive line, and he hasn't been. You know, then you look at like an AJ Epinesa, another guy, second round last year. AJ Epinesa, he fell in the draft because a lot of people were expecting him to be like a first-round guy. AJ Epinesa is another guy who fell in the draft because he's not going to fit every scheme, and he does fit the Bills scheme, and we'll see if he can develop. I'll be honest, I watched a lot of Bills film last year. I really did, and I saw no AJ Epinesa. There was nothing there. So I'm not sitting here saying, oh, he sucked last year, because I speak from what I know and what I see, and I never really saw that, but I also never saw him pop either. So I feel confident saying that like he underperformed. I feel like most Bills fans will agree with that. I hope. Let me know in the comments what you think of the defensive line and where they've been as far as like drafting lately, and you know what we're expecting from those type of guys. Maybe AJ Epinesa played really good in games I just didn't study or watch at all, and that's very possible. But I feel like I heard his name none last year. In a second round pick, you know, obviously definitely has room to grow. But just interesting. Hey, they went back to back this year, defensive line. Hopefully they can shore that up with a couple of these guys. But I'll be honest, these are 2 guys that I'm a little bit low on. So I feel like they attacked the position, but based on my grade for these guys, you know, they didn't fix the problem. Again, just solely based on my grade. And then the last guy from this draft that we're really going to focus on, Spencer Brown, offensive lineman they got in the 3rd round out of University of Northern Illinois. It's a guy I wasn't aware of personally. I would assume most people weren't. This is a, you know, small school lineman. Not a lot of guys are going to be aware of the small school lineman for the most part. But you know, a bunch of physical tools, 6'8", 311 pounds, just a hulking man of a man. One of those guys where it's like, yeah, he's probably not going to be able to fit into guard. He's probably going to be too big and you know, all those things to be a guard, but could be a really good tackle and definitely a developmental piece there. It will be interesting to see if he's going to get playing time this year. I don't know what to expect there, but obviously Bills definitely needed to help out that offensive line. They went offensive line 3rd and then went back to the well in the 5th round to attack the offensive line. Overall with this draft, let's break down what I liked, what I didn't like, and some of the grades that I have for this Bills draft here. First of all, my best move, the double up on need. I love seeing this. Listen, Bills didn't make a lot of trades. Bills didn't do a lot in this draft as far as like making sexy moves or anything, but hey, they came in knowing they needed to help out the trenches on both sides. What do? Their first 4 picks, their premium picks all together, all trenches, all guys that are gonna, you know, put in that lineup, put into that roster and say, okay, let's figure out what we got here. And you know, hey, the Bills are treating it like lottery picks, and I love it. You know, it is lottery picks. Hopefully a couple of these guys can work out and really help out that defensive and offensive line all together. My worst move, listen, I'm not a Carlos Basham guy. I'm not. And beyond, that's really the only move that I can just specifically look at and be like, meh, was not my thing. And granted, I'm not a big Gregory Rousseau guy either, but I at least get it. And I think like he has an elite trait with his length and strength and all those things. So I at least understood that. With Carlos Basham, I kind of just viewed him as a little bit of a tweener, a little bit surprised he went day 2 altogether, especially 2nd round. I wasn't expecting that. That was a personal take there, and my opinion on the situation. But moving on to some of my grades, I don't just give one final grade. I give 3 final grades. All right. So I give a grade on the players they drafted, the draft value of those players that they drafted and the trades they made, and then just overall, how they attack their needs. I think you have a pretty good idea how I'm going to grade that last one. But first of all, players, listen, this is not the guys that they got were not my guys. These guys that we got were guys that I am not super high on altogether. So I'm giving it a D. I promise that's not just because I'm a Dolphins fan and I'm grading my division rival. I usually really like their draft, to be totally honest. But this year, not a lot of guys that I was super high on. Marquez Stevenson is a guy that I think is certainly interesting. Wide receiver out of Houston they got late. But other than that, like I'm not going to pretend to know these linemen coming into the draft, and maybe they'll be good, maybe they're not. I didn't watch them. I didn't study them. I researched them, but I did not watch their film or anything like that to know what to expect there. So that doesn't really factor in. But yeah, those first two picks with those defensive ends that I'm not a big fan of, and that's just my personal opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I always hope I'm wrong for all these guys. Like, I hope they're all stars, but it isn't. It is what it is. Overall draft value, I think they did pretty okay with draft value. I'm going to give it a B. I think they attacking the offensive lineman late. You didn't get some of the premium linemen, but this was a pretty good offensive line class. There was a ton of guys in the second round, and when there's a ton of guys in the second round, you always know, hey, that's going to fall. That's going to trickle down, right? So these guys that they get in the third and the fifth, obviously they're hit and miss. They're lotto tickets a little bit, but I'm pretty okay with the draft value there. And then obviously I think Gregory Rousseau went right where he was supposed to. The only thing that I really had an issue value-wise was Carlos Basham was like the only guy who was like, okay, listen, I'm not a fan of Gregory Rousseau, but I totally understand why he went 30 overall. I'm not a fan of Carlos Basham, and I don't get how he went, 61 overall. So that's just my take. That's, again, my personal opinion there. And then needs, A+. They hit the needs that they had. All right. So if you went in this draft, you like the players that they got, and you're a fan, like, you have to love this draft. I think truly the only reason I'm a little bit lower than maybe what everybody else would be, or what people that like the players they got would be, is because my value of these players isn't quite as high. And hey, I'm wrong every year, and I hit every once in a while too, but I'm wrong every year, so I can certainly be wrong about all these guys, especially those first two guys that they got. I could certainly be wrong. They could be superstars in the NFL. That remains to be seen. The last thing I will say, I was a little surprised they didn't go for a wide receiver a little bit earlier. Again, there's only so many picks, but to wait until the 6th round to get a wide receiver, I thought they would try to address the John Brown absence. Listen, I know they got Emmanuel Sanders, but man, he's been on 3 teams in 2 years? 4 teams in 3 years, something like that. Like, I mean, he's been around the past couple of years, and I think there's a reason for that. So just take it for what it is on that one. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please, if you enjoy this kind of content, if you just enjoy draft content in general, football content, I am an up-and-coming channel that has grown a ton in the past couple months, and I'm really trying to keep it going, guys. I'm going to put out the best stuff I can, and we'll be excited to hear from Bills fans to see what they think about my opinion on this draft and what they think about their team overall. I mean, let's be honest, they're the top of the AFC East. Even if they didn't nail this draft, they're still looking really, really pretty, being just a couple plays away from a Super Bowl appearance at the very least. So, hey, guys, thank you so much for watching.